Hello and welcome to another episode of the Coaching Outdoors podcast. And this is the last episode of Series 8. Cannot quite believe it. Absolutely flown by. And we are wrapping up with a real cracker, it has to be said. So I'm Anna Marie. If you have not listened before, I am joined by my co-host Paul Jeffries. And in our hot seat today, we have Ellie Lloyd-Jones. And Ellie has been on our radar for definitely the last 18 months. She has burst onto the LinkedIn scene with an absolute blast and is super, super active. So if you're not following her, I would definitely recommend it. She posts really regularly about her net walks through her company Elevate. She has a plethora of well-being top tips. And her latest initiative, which is what we really, really want to dive into today, is the Source to Sea initiative that she has been collaborating with our champion and mentor, Jonathan Passmore, who is a huge, huge friend of the podcast. So lots and lots to explore. And we also really want to get into Ellie's backstory as well, which is really interesting as how she has come to be the wild outdoor coach that she is. So without further ado, Ellie, if you're able to just introduce yourself briefly, we've got time to dive in, and then we'll go with the flow.
Thanks so much for having me, Anna Marie and Paul. This just feels like such an honor. Founder of Elevate Networking and Elevate with Ellie, and I'm based up in Cheshire. So I run team-based coaching outdoors, and I run networking events, which are basically just coaching walks for small business owners in the area.
Oh, that's fantastic, Ellie. It's great to have you. And as I say, as Anna Maria said, it's really nice to be able to have the opportunity to delve a little bit longer into sort of understanding you and the work you do. But before we do that, and we'll have plenty of time in our podcast today, we'd really like to take you right back to our favorite question and becoming our very famous question in all of our podcasts. And that is to go back to your earliest memory, if you could share with our listeners, of being outdoors. And then the second part is, why do you love the outdoors so much?
Oh, this is the question that I've been dreading because it shows that I'm an imposter in this space, Paul, because I'm not one of these people. When I listen to your podcast episodes and everyone's got wonderful memories of childhood and usually trees and I don't have that. I came to really loving and appreciating nature in my mid-30s. So mine was very much I just sort of fell into it really. My husband is a few years older than me. When he was turning 40, he wanted to climb Snowdon. I've always been active, but I've never particularly been too bothered about the outdoor space, to be honest, up until this point. And we climbed Snowdon together because he was on his bucket list. And from that point on, because I didn't even own a pair of walking boots or any clothes appropriate to walk in. I would have heels to go down to the pub in, but I didn't have anything for climbing mountains. And I loved from that point on, I was just, oh, I love this. And I think there's lots of other different angles to it because no journey is linear, is it? Also, I have three children, and particularly my middle child is so much better outdoors. And I see the difference in him. And it's through learning through him that I've realized how much I love being outdoors and how much it helps me. And yeah, having three children, and when I was in the corporate world as well, it was such a lovely antidote to be outside, away from the noise and the pressures and the stress, and there was so much peace and calm. And I came back from a walk in nature feeling so much more serene than when I left. So yeah, that's my dirty secret, that I work in this outdoor space, and I didn't always love it from a young age.
And I have been waiting for that dirty secret to be aired. And I remember having a conversation with Rob Lawrence because I know you had a podcast episode with the Association for Coaching last year. And what he said was that really struck him was that your experience gives other people the experience. Sorry, that experience gives other people the permission to step towards the outdoors. And as you say, listening to this podcast, it might be a little bit, kind of glowy and pink. And I've always loved nature, and I grew up surrounded by fields and trees and hugging and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that is not everybody's reality. So the fact that you can come on, I think it shows real diversity and will hopefully encourage other people who haven't had that access or that relationship from a young age. And, everybody's journey is different. So listener, if you are listening in and you can resonate with Ellie, like, reach out, let Ellie know, let us know. We'd love to hear your story. And actually, what was your earliest memory? Because it still is an earliest memory in your mid-30s. It might not be when you were 3, but it still is an earliest memory, and it's just as valuable. So thank you for all that honesty and that vulnerability to speak your truth.
Yeah.
Thank you. It also means I'm also still in the honeymoon period, because I haven't been with nature for so long. I'm still giddy about it, which is probably why I'm on LinkedIn a lot sharing it, because I'm like, oh, it's a tree.
Oh, so from the coaching perspective, you describe yourself being a coach before you even realized it. So thinking back through your career, and you've alluded to it being, early days within the corporate world, what are the golden threads of your coaching practice and being this coach before you consciously were aware of the facts?
When I was thinking back, I forget that I started in the corporate world in 1998, just a long time ago. And I don't think coaching was hugely a thing then that people talked about, definitely not in the regions. I've always been based up in the Northwest. So we've always been last to get anything anyway. So coaching wasn't very big on the scene then. And then I've been a leader within organisations for the majority of my career, and people used to say that I was really good at coaching, but I didn't get what they meant. I've always been a little bit different in my approach, in that I genuinely care about my people and the people around me. So I would always try and understand by speaking to them what makes them tick, what makes them great at what they do, why do they love coming into work, why do they love it, and using that to help them move forward. And I think in the corporate world, coaching was always synonymous with meeting business targets. So I hadn't really separated the two, that you could be a coach not trying to force people into meeting targets, if I could be so bold. And I think when I got the realization that actually I can approach speaking to people the way that I want to, for them to just be great in themselves. And then I realized that actually I could do this outside of the corporate world and enjoy it more, and not be so restricted by, the company's targets, I suppose, because that's what the coaching always was when I worked for the large corporates. So I don't know if that's answered the question. I was trying to think back then, what are the golden threads? It was just me always being a little bit different. The rest of the leadership team would follow a particular path, and I would always be doing something a little bit maverick, a little bit different. And I always had high performing teams because I approached it from a coaching mindset, but I didn't really know that that's what I was doing. Until I started to formalize it by getting my ILM.
Very good. And again, I think, Ellie, you raised another interesting point for our coaching community, for the outdoor community, and the immediate thing that came to mind listening to you is, so many people will be listening to this who might be a coach, or they might be interested in coaching. But what came to mind was this internal coach, somebody who's employed internally versus somebody who's a independent working externally. And I think, you raise a really good thought process, and love to hear what listeners might think about this, is working internally. You can still work outdoors if you want. You could take your leadership team or your coachees outdoors, but is it boundaried? You're working with targets. Are there boundaries that people find that, can give them some sort of boundary that they may have to work with when you're working outdoors independently? Can you kind of freestyle it and be more creative? I don't know. Really interesting thought process, and we may not completely answer that today on the call, but I'm loving the thought-provoking nature of these things. And we'll have people listening to this who are independents and internal coaches. So yeah, something in that. I love the juxtaposition you've set up. So moving on to that is who or what has influenced your development as a coach? And you've shared with us that's in those recent, those years, but plus encouraged you to take, that to be a sort of a wild coach working outdoors, as it were. How did, just talk us that bit towards this latter part of your career.
Oh, how did that happen? It was sort of by accident. All the best things tend to be, don't they? They're not usually
Yeah.
intentional, the best things. So 2021 is when I went self-employed, left my corporate career. And a lot of coaches that I've spoken to are similar, that you have this idea, especially if you've come from the corporate world, that you're great at what you do. Everyone says you're going to be brilliant. And then so you step out and it's like day one and you go, where are all these clients waiting for me and queuing up? And they're not there. And they're not there on the second day either. And you're waiting for them to appear because in the corporate world, I had a queue of people at my desk all of the time wanting to speak to me. So it was just really strange. So it was quite an experiment. What do I enjoy doing? What do other people gravitate towards? What's the crossover on the Venn diagram as to where I sit in this self-employed world? And I'm someone who likes to be busy, and I operate quite well just on that line between busy and exhausted, which is always quite an exciting place for those that live with me. And and so trying to fit everything in, I've got 3 youngish children, and they're still dependent on me. I have a house to running my business, my own personal space, time, well-being is really important to me. And I was on a call with a coach friend of mine, just saying, I just don't know how to fit all of this in. And he said, well, why don't you combine the coaching with the work that you do outdoors? And I was like, who would want to do that with me? Why would anyone want to do that? And I'd never even heard of the concept of outdoor coaching. And he said, oh, I've seen this one person that does it. And he searched, and I can't even remember who it was now. And I was like, oh, it's a thing. People do this thing. And so that's when I started doing the networking. I set the networking events up to just, I thought, well, if I set these events up for people, nature, then let's see where this goes. And that's sort of how it happened. It was never really intentional. It was sort of a selfish way for me to fit everything into my life. And then I realized that actually I'm a better person outdoors. So the people that I work with get a better version of me. And in turn, it's like cyclical, isn't it? We both benefit. And when it's a group of people, even more so.
I love that bit around it was never intentional. It was a selfish way of fitting everything into my life.
That's the way
And
roll.
again, like, what is selfish? And it's a conversation I have with a number of clients around this concept of being selfish. And well, where is that judgment coming from? Is something that we can mull over. So having been on this journey and, accidentally stumbled across your role, looking back now to your younger self, what is one piece of advice that you would give to them knowing what you know now?
That actually doing this sort of work or any sort of work that I'm learning in the business world, is that no one does it by themselves, and you don't have to do it by yourself. Most people who are self-employed or the business of one, it appears that they're doing everything themselves, but nobody gets there without help, without supports, without cheerleading. And people are really nice. People are genuinely lovely. They're coming from, talking a lot about being in the corporate world here, but coming from the corporate world, there is a feeling of, can I say backstabbing? I don't know. You kind of, if you put yourself out there and ask for help, there are instances when that can come back to bite you, and you'll wish you hadn't. But in the sort of self-employed space, people want to help. People who've been in business for years remember what it was like, and they don't want anything for it. They just want to be able to give back and give you some thoughts and advice and feedback and a leg up. People are just lovely. They're so helpful, and I wouldn't have been able to get to the point that I am without help. And I've got a wonderful, wonderful mentor of mine, a lady called Hilary Mines, who runs a walking app called Trundle. And she's so generous with her support of me. And she said last year, she said you should write she said you should create a kindness catalogue and document everybody who's helped you along the way, because when you reach that milestone in your business that you want to get to, you can throw a party, you can send out thank you notes, and just those small making event or that phone call that somebody had with you, that piece of advice. You can't get to where you are without all of that. And so I love that. And that's the way that, yeah, I think that's the thing that I wish someone had told me. I didn't want to ask for help to start with because I thought I should be able to do this on my own. But it's not as enjoyable when you do it on your own, is it? It's lovely to share the journey.
No, it's 100%. I would agree with you. And what amazing advice for some of the younger people, or people starting out, or people who are just fresh. Because I would agree with you, and I'm absolutely certain. I know Anna Marie and we will, with collaboration, the richness that it brings, bouncing ideas off of each other, building off each other. And I would agree. My experience is similar. People genuinely want to help and support, and be that technical advice, be that accountancy, right through to coaching or education or learning, or so reach out, everybody. Ellie is the living embodiment, and I'm sure Ellie could give you some advice on that. And I love your idea of keeping a log, and I think that's a lovely idea, and fantastic to be able to reach back at some point when you feel ready, that you want to say thank you to people. But there is something in it, and I have to say, this community that we all operate in really is a fabulous space. My experience of it and in it has been nothing but amazing, and it's really great to see. So it's lovely to hear you reflect that and offer that back to the community. I guess here we come to elevate, networking and the whole kind of piece that you've done. And I mean, what's inspired you to sort of start the initiative, Ellie, really, and sort of right up to present day almost, really? What inspires you today to do what you do?
Part of it's my doggedness. I kind of saw something that I wanted in the world and it wasn't there, so I created it. That seems to be the way that I go. But actually, linking to what you were saying there, Paul, about this community, um, just connecting with people on LinkedIn and social media and seeing other people who are doing similar sort of work, especially when um, my friend sort of suggested it to me and I was like, I didn't even know this was a thing. There are so many people doing this sort of work in their own way. There's enough space for everybody. It's very much collaboration over competition. And I find it inspiring to just, in my little room here on my own in Cheshire, and I'm scrolling through social media and I see all of these amazing people doing wonderful things and sharing great ideas and gorgeous pictures of how they've been in nature. And that inspires me every day. I don't think that I'm trying to do this alone. I'm part of something bigger, even though we're all running our own businesses, doing our own thing in our own way. And yeah, the messages, people reach out to me to ask me how I started in outdoor coaching. I reach out to other people and just say that I love what they do. That inspires me every day.
And I was so interested to get you on the podcast about the whole networking thing. And this, in a way, connects a little bit to my backstory. So back in 2015, I collaborated with a lady and we set up a networking event down in the southwest in Bath and Bath-on-Avon and Devizes, very much on the Kennet-on-Avon Canal. And we ran them from 2015 to 2021. So it never picked up so much after COVID. And the initiative, when it ran, we had such a community. It really was such a treat to meet with largely other self-employed individuals. And the range of people who would come would be anything from lawyers to photographers to well-being experts to architects. Like it was a really, really valuable opportunity to kind of experience and skill share and ultimately give each other support. And networking back then was not a thing at all. And actually now, I remember Googling it, and like literally there was one guy up in Edinburgh who was doing it, and there was nothing. And now if you Google networking, it's like it has spread like wildfire, and it's and seeing you kind of sparking off other Elevate events around different parts of the country and getting ambassadors on board is just absolutely phenomenal, the way that you have kind of taken it and rolled with it. So within your journey so far, and this, we're always interested in the challenges and extending that kind of real reflective piece around like, well, what was it that has been hard on your journey so far, and how did you overcome that challenge? Or, you know, sometimes the most valuable lessons are learned when they weren't overcome. So for you, like, well, what has been the biggest challenges? And then how have you overcome them or not?
There continues to be challenges really all the time. The latest one was this is Monday. On Friday we had that storm across, particularly for like the Scotland island. I can't remember. Ewan, is it? I can't remember what the name was. But I had to cancel my first event on Friday. I've never had to cancel for the weather before. And I would often say, when people say, well, you know, do you do it in all weathers? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Of course I do it in all weathers, but a 50-mile-an-hour storm is not really safe. So that was a challenge on Friday. And I'd got some people on here on the walk who'd been waiting to come for ages and were really looking forward to it, and I had to cancel it. So that was a challenge. Everyone's been lovely. Nobody wants to be blown off. We were going to Bickerton Hill as well, which is quite high and quite an exposed ridge. People didn't want to be blown off there. So, you know, they were understanding. I think just building the brand, making it different. I always want it to be different. Elevate Networking will be different to any other networking event that you ever go to. So I'm iterating all the time. No two events are quite the same, because I will learn off the back of the previous one what's worked, what hasn't worked. So we've gone from it just being a free networking event for people to come along, for me to meet people in the new area. I realised quite quickly that when it was free, people didn't turn up. So then I started to charge a nominal amount. But it was hard when I'm promoting it and then, you know, or don't get any bookings. And it would have been so easy to just give up. But I'd love it, and I still go to the walk even if people don't come. And then last year I evolved it more into the coaching elements, and I got Mike Mayer, who's my ambassador in Cambridge. He signed on. That was a challenge in itself, that suddenly I was having to share, like, create a contract and an operating manual for what I do. And I'm like, I don't know, I just go along and do it. So I had to get all of that onto paper. That was really challenging. Supporting him in his journey when he struggles. I have all these years of leading people, but it's very different when it's my own business, and Elevate is part of me. And then this year, partnering with Cheshire Wildlife Trust for my events, where they give me information on the local wildlife and I weave that into the coaching, which I love, but not being able to do it on my own and having to wait for sign off, and then thinking, oh, I've got the event running and I've got to do a print run for the coaching cards and all of this. That's challenging. And I'm just taking on a new ambassador as well from North Wales. She's going to start with us in February. So growing, I'm now going to have to motivate and lead a couple of people in different parts of the country. So the challenges continue all of the time, because I'm not happy standing still. I always want to know, how can we make it a better experience for people that come along? How can we make Elevate unique? And it will be unique for people whether they come to my events or Mike's in Cambridge or Karen's in North Wales, because I really want the coaches that run the events to bring themselves to it. I don't want them to replicate what I do, because that's not them. But I want them to bring their own unique coaching style into nature, and however that is for them, as long as they resonate with the values and they want to be part of the team and help just grow the prevalence of coaching outdoors, then great. But yeah, it continues to be a challenge, and I'm sure I'll have lots more when you speak to me at the live event later on in the year.
No, absolutely, Ellie, and that's you know, a great share of the challenges that sometimes as coaches, business leaders, we can, and you know, and it's fair to say that, you know, when we engage with others, and whether that's ambassadors, associates, employees, the growth we want to keep, and I can hear it in your passion, in your voice, that you want to keep growing and keep driving forward. but naturally your leadership skills come out in your, how do you help your ambassadors, how do you hold that, brand, but again leave enough room for them to bring themselves to that as well, which is really important. And I hear that really clearly. And we should say storms, as outdoor coaches, we have to respect that whole thing of contracting and people's safety and stuff. So those are really important as well. And you've done that obviously really well, but challenges nonetheless. But again, there'll be other people that we'd love to hear, listeners, and share any challenges that you have. And it's useful for Ellie to highlight that. It brings us on to a collaboration. Somebody who has very much reached out and collaborated in our community. He's very connected to the three of us, and he's I suppose, a sort of a constant through our relationship that the three of us have had, and that's Professor Jonathan Passmore. And we're really keen to start this part of the podcast around understanding your collaboration with Jonathan and how that really emerged and kind of came together. And Jonathan has a great history of reaching out and supporting people in this space. And we'd love to hear about that, Ellie.
Yeah, I don't know how it's happened, to be honest. Paul and Anna-Marie, it's all happened really, really quickly. It's amazing. So I'd obviously heard of Jonathan before because of all the books and things that he's written in all his research, but I didn't really know what he looked like. I didn't really have a face to the name. So when I went to your live event last year, he came over to me and was talking to me as if he knew me, and he's like, "Hi, you having a good time?" And I went, "Yes, great." And then he came back a bit later and he's like, "How do I know you?" And I went, "I don't know. I don't know you either." And he was like, "Well, I've seen you. Have you been to one of my like lectures? Have you been on any of my courses?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And then he said, "We must be connected on LinkedIn." And then I think, if I'm remembering rightly, I think he remembers some of the videos that I do. So I do videos on LinkedIn walking in nature. And he was like, "Yeah, I love what you do. We should connect." And I went, "Okay then." And then lots of people say that, so I didn't think much of it, but he actually did. And we've been messaging every month or so, just checking in. And he keeps saying, I want to be able to support you. Let's meet and have a walk and talk. And then he had his spinal operation, didn't he, in November? So we'd arranged to meet this month on the 31st of January for a walk, like a walk and talk, and just have a chat. But on the first weekend of January, he sent me a LinkedIn message, so what would it be, like the 4th of January, just saying, "I've had a really crazy idea. How about we walk the Source to Sea along the River Thames this year?" And I didn't really know much about it. And when I Googled it, and so it was like 215 miles. Does he mean in one day? I don't really know. So I replied and said, "That's a really crazy idea. Yes, it is. But I'm not put off by it. I'm quite intrigued." So a couple of days later, we had a Zoom call where we were just talking about about his idea, about how it would be great for his rehabilitation from his spinal injury, and for him to do some research around actually the impact of being in blue-green spaces on emotional health and well-being, and whether I'd want to go along with him and help him organise it and run it. Because from what I believe, he does mainly one-to-one coaching, and most of my coaching tends to be in group settings, so it's quite a nice kind of match of skill sets. And I think I must have said, "Yes, we'll do it," because we're doing it. But within the space of a week. So this Friday is our first walk, the first leg of the walk. So we've ironed out all of the different walks and put a schedule in place for the end of the year. But this Friday was supposed to be just us meeting up and having a walk and talk. I didn't expect to have put this whole program in place and us be doing the first leg of it this Friday. So it's really exciting, but I'm still not had time to process it massively because it's been a lot of work trying to get it up and running. But it seems really popular so far. We've got 5 people booked to come with us this Friday, and another 12 people booked on the subsequent events so far.
And this is the impact of Jonathan. He is a whirlwind of ideas, and he is just so connected. Oh my goodness. He is such a champion of this coaching niche, for want of a better word. And the growth of the community, I think, is partly due to his influence, which is phenomenal. And I know for me, I always look at him and kind of take away, okay, the power of collaboration. And yeah, his energy and his enthusiasm, oh my goodness, it's just absolutely infectious.
It is. He's a force of nature in himself, isn't he?
So within the initiative, like what are your kind of desires from it? Like bigger picture, taking it back, because you've got events scheduled like all throughout the year. So I don't know if you
Yeah.
kind of fast forward to like your last walk in December, like what are you hoping for?
Um, I'm hoping, well, the basics. I want an experience. I want to be able to experience this with. I love the idea that that it'll be Jonathan and I will be the constant throughout, but we will be inviting other people along the journey. So it will all be different because there'll be different people there. The weather will be different. It will be a different stretch of the walk. It will be from the source, so just the spring all the way into the city when it gets busier and the landscape changes. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that impacts just the quality of the space that we have, the experience that people have. We want to record it, record some video footage each time we do it to create a story. And yeah, Jonathan's really poetic in his idea of this journey as we follow it as and follow our journey as how we grow in comfort and confidence to run these walks from the tiny little source at the start as it gets bigger and noisier and just busier. So I love that whole metaphor. Um, yeah, I'd love to see other people experience outdoor coaching who haven't had the opportunity to before either. Um, that I'm really excited about, and I've already had lots of messages from people telling me that that's what they're looking forward to. So yeah, to share it, like we said before about that collaboration, sharing the journey. I'd much rather do it with someone else than do it on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about sharing and again, inspiring. It may well, the whole program may well inspire another two or three outdoor coaches along the way. I mean, there's some amazing thoughts that could come out of this, along with further videos, research, etc., whatever. It's absolutely fantastic, Ellie, and feel very privileged to have you on and be able to help and, throw some light on that. So I guess between the three of us, and chatting away, the point of getting listeners involved. I mean, we're starting next Friday, 31st. It runs
Yeah.
all through the year, and I think there's a big emphasis we should say on May, June, July, naturally because of the summer. There's a little bit more intensity. But tell us about how do listeners get involved? Where do they go? How can they find out about these walks, etc.?
So yeah, the first one I think is before this episode goes out. And then the last one is on the 12th of December. The schedule, how to book, FAQs, everything is all on. There's a page on my website. So that's got as much information as I can possibly think at this moment. It will continue to grow and evolve as we learn more as we go through the walk. Yes, it ramps up towards the end of June, up until the end of June, because um, Jonathan was really keen, and I 100% agree to coincide the stretch in Henley to coincide with the live event. So there's an element of me that thinks that the day before I'm going to be quite tired by the time we actually get to the event itself. We've got the 13-mile stretch, which is one of the longest ones, the day before the Coaching Outdoors live event. And then the day that the event finishes, which I think from looking at the last schedule was about 4 in the afternoon, we're then going to do an 8-mile walk that evening as well, to make the most of the light, because I think it's the day before the summer solstice, isn't it? So it should be the most light that we have.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that's going to be quite a busy few days. And the rest of it, we've just we've tried to give ourselves a few weeks between each walk if possible. And we've already getting more people booking on as it gets closer to the city. I've had some lovely stories as well. There's a lady that lives near to the stretch, part of the stretch, that she set herself a challenge of completing all of it, not necessarily of one of the legs of it, so that she can. She said, what did she say? She said she got the map of it on the wall in her hallway. She said she's not said how long it's going to take her to do it, but as long as she can get parts of it done, and she'd love to join us for part of it. So I'm looking forward to hearing stories of why people have come along and what's attracted to them.
And love the way, clearly slightly biased, that you are aligning it with the Coaching Outdoors podcast event live at Henley, which, yeah, that's going to be a full-on few days. Oh my goodness.
Given a few naps, I think.
Bit of self-care before and afterwards with the scheduling. And I mean, I have to say, I would love to be there, though I need to be realistic and go, it's probably not going to happen.
For the last mile, maybe the day before.
I don't know, I mean, the Wednesday beforehand, just with the setup, and now that we're a 2-day event, like Paul and I managing this at the moment, it is grown like arms and legs and heads, and the event and then post-event, there's a lot. So definitely we'll bear it in mind, and we'll definitely be there to welcome or send off.
Spirit.
I'm there with you. I'll be there in spirit if not.
Good.
But just love the concept. And listeners, hopefully you're coming along to Henley already. Ticket sales are going well, and this is a perfect intro outro to really help meet other people who might have been at the event, who might not have been at the event, and just really kind of have a slow arrival and a slow departure, as opposed to kind of like landing. It would really help you kind of ease into that. So yeah, what a year, 2025. There's a lot going on as well.
We're only at the end of January as well.
January's kind of zoomed past, I have to say. But I mean, I got so excited on LinkedIn, like seeing your initiative with Jonathan, and then Karen Liebengook and James Fowler collaborating on an event at Net Wilding at the beginning of July for a Coaches Day. And it filled me with such joy that 2025, these offerings are being made across the community, and actually what is going to emerge from them. And that is what we really hold at the core of the podcast and the live event. Again, it's coming back to this theme of community, connection, collaboration. And it really links into what you've been talking about, the way that you run your business, is that this is not a solo endeavor. Like, we might be self-employed, though actually our success is dependent on other people. And what can we actually give back to the wider community? And again, circling back to this idea of this kindness catalogue, that is just a really, really beautiful offering.
I think that there's something. Sorry, Paul.
Go on. No, I was going to say as well. Would Ellie talk to Jonathan about? I'm interested. I'm not sure how many projects work over a year. This might well be a first in terms of its longevity over a year. Now that kind of says to me, there's something about the seasons, and I'm really interested to understand from you and your observations from you and Jonathan around how the seasons affect those walks and how people show up. And, that might be a really interesting thing to sort of reflect on or note. So I'm almost, I kind of almost want to start with you, and I will be joining one of these walks, but I want to kind of almost at the end of December find out what some of the reflections in 26 you took away from this, because I think the seasons are something we don't always there's some certain longevity to this that is quite interesting. So that was a thought I wanted to just get out of my head, if I'm honest. So I've done it now.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. I'm going to be taking video footage, and I want to have Jonathan and I sort of speak to camera at the start and end of each walk to answer a few questions on that, to just see how it changes, how it impacts us, how we feel going into it, and whether the seasons change. And the walk at the end of, like, the second day of the Henley event, that's going to be an evening walk. That's the first evening walk they will have done. And how does that change? You know, the time of day, all of
Yeah.
that. How does that change?
There
Yeah,
must be a
absolutely.
book in there somewhere. Like, seriously, how many books has Jonathan written? Ooh. So this is, I don't know, I just see this as a really kind of beautiful metaphor. And you mentioned how poetic Jonathan is. Like, yeah, some form of book. I mean, it's great, the video content, and then also for longevity, recording that as well. And yeah, more literature within this area is needed, and this could be something different. But
Yeah, I think the well-being element, I love the idea of the well-being element because I think that's something that's coming into the forefront so much more now as well. So that will be
Mm.
fascinating.
Yeah, yeah,
So
really
with
good.
with everything that's going on resources wise, what resources would you recommend from, your journey so far that our listeners who are maybe interested in this area, what would you recommend?
Um, you know what? There's not many resources in this area, are there? There's obviously Leslie Roberts' book. James Farrell's book's beautiful as well, actually. I really love that one. I've got most inspiration and resources from social media, to be fair. I'm reaching out and being inspired by other people.
Mm.
And actually going further than just a message and actually speaking to them. I well, you'll know Anna Marie because you came along to the event that I ran in Hyde Park with Lisa Partridge from Singapore. So I found really inspiring, and actually real life experience over and above kind of reading the books. Um, so I don't think I've answered your question massively, but I tend to be more experiential, and see what are other people doing, give it a try myself, and then I'll share what I've done on social media.
That's absolutely great. That's fine. That's great. And yeah, and we all learn differently. And I think that's one of the key messages that we always, Anna Marie and Alex, we try to put out on the podcast that, if it's experiential, if it's immersing yourself in doing, that's absolutely fine. And Ellie, I think you've demonstrated today beautifully how, some of your, answers and that you've got us all thinking, and there's nothing wrong with that. So there's some lovely books, but there's not loads, and there's maybe opportunities for everybody to can fill that space, but also, go and reach out, speak to people, try things, and experience it, and then develop it for yourself. So that's fantastic, and again, really rich. So we always end, Ellie, with we'd love you to tell how can our listeners discover more about you and your work. We've heard about Source to See, but how about more? How do they get in touch with you and connecting up with you?
Well, as Anna Marie mentioned, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I like to spread the word, whether people want to hear it or not, it's there. So just my name, Ellie Lloyd-Jones on LinkedIn. My website is Elevate with Ellie. The Source to See information is there. Any of my networking events. There is a blog post that I wrote on there that I'd forgotten about until now, actually, because a lot of people ask me how I got into nature-based coaching, and I wrote a blog on how I got into it and some of the people that I recommend sort of following because I find them really interesting. And the live event at Henley is mentioned on there as well for people to come along to.
Oh,
So that's how you
fantastic.
can get in touch with me.
Thank you so much, Ellie. And yes, you will be there at the Henley event with Jonathan, and you will be a part of the program. And you're going to be able to share an update on your experiences between now and then. So
Yeah.
really, really interested to see what emerges and to hear your reflections live. So we're working on that behind the scenes as to where it fits. But thank you so much. I mean, this very much has come up, as you say, like pretty fast, flash to bang. And we reached out to you just so that we could really pull together Series 8. And I think it's a really beautiful arc we've had in Series 8. Just we're starting with Lisa, who you've mentioned, and you're, connected to her and the fact that you ran this event in Hyde Park, which I was lucky enough to be in London at the time and to come along and meet you again and to meet Lisa in person too. And, you know, again, I love the way that her work has been influenced by Gary Pratt, who again is a former guest on the podcast. So it really goes to show this kind of collaborative community and connection and what can emerge from it. So a massive thank you, and really look forward to seeing where this goes and whether there's an opportunity to have you kind of back on end of the year, beginning of 2026 to learn more, because this is a really innovative idea that there's not been anything like this before. Like, you're a trailblazer here, and really curious to be able to share your message with others across the community.
Thank you so much for having me to chat about it more. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure as well to have you as well, Ellie, come along as well. I have one last question for you. Who did the artwork for Source to Sea? It's really nice.
Oh, my friend Kieran did some of it, and then I made it into a logo. It's good, isn't it? I think it's AI. I think he did it on AI, but
Really
it's
good.
yeah. He's very clever. My friend Kieran. Have you met him, Anna Marie? He did the video stuff at Hyde Park. Very creative. Thanks.
No, good question, Paul. Yeah, no, I had noted that. Yeah, good call.
Brilliant. Well, no, thank you, Ellie, from me as well. It's been a real absolute pleasure talking to you, and just love some of your really intuitive responses today. I think it will really get some of the listeners really helpful information in there, thought-provoking. So thank you again. Lovely.
Oh, thank you both.
And that is it. Series 8. Oh my goodness, 79 episodes of goodness. So if you are a first-time listener, go back and explore our treasure trove of treats and let us know what you think. We are always curious as to what resonates with you, what challenges you, maybe what you disagree with. This is such a rich and diverse community of outdoor coaching, nature-based coaching, that there is space for everybody. And Series 9 will be kickstarting very, very soon. We're reaching out to individuals from around the world. And as ever, if there is someone that we have not invited on yet and you really think should have the opportunity to have a conversation, and that person might be you, like, reach out, whether it is to myself, whether it's to Paul, whether it's to Alex. We really, really, again, want to have a diverse range of guests from around the world, different genders, different types of coaching. It is all up for grabs because we really, really want to showcase what is possible within this area. And the Henley event, clearly the Henley event is fast approaching. Very excitingly, Paul and I had our first project meeting at the beginning of the year, and we're again catching up next week. So it is very much, it is rolling. It is a massive beast. The number of facilitators that we have currently collecting their bios and their descriptors and what they have on offer is just phenomenal. I just want to go to all of the workshops and all of the sessions, but you are going to have to choose. But get your tickets soon, because once you've got your tickets, then you get priority on choosing the workshops, and there will be limited spaces in the workshops. So the date for that, if you haven't got the date in your diary, is the 19th and 20th of June. So really, really, really hope to see you there. If you're not a member of our LinkedIn community, please do come along. We hit the 2000 mark a couple of weeks ago, which was a bit of a milestone. And another milestone is that we are going to be hitting year 4 of our anniversary of the podcast. So again, it's been a real organic growth and passion podcast for us all. And if you have enjoyed today, please do let us know on LinkedIn, comment, share. This is all about the ripple effect and reaching more people. And if you think you know someone who might enjoy or benefit from the podcast, please do let them know. And other than that, it is a wrap. Thank you, dear listener, for your time. And I hope that it has inspired you. And let us know what resonated with you. See you again on another podcast episode soon. So if you enjoyed what you've heard, like it, share across your network,
and subscribe to our YouTube channel and LinkedIn community page, the Coaching Outdoor Podcast.
Thanks so much in advance for your support.